And we're live on a winter wonderland day. As if you can see that, I don't know if you can. Probably can't, but there's snow. So we're going to try and make this as quick as possible. For starters, let's talk about the crazy final minutes of the Vikings and Bills contest. In a game that the Bills controlled probably 90% of the game, maybe a little more than that. They controlled the game since the Vikings were the team to score first. And then the Bills just poured it on. And at one point, it was 27-10 Bills. Then you get into the final couple minutes of the fourth quarter. Vikings go down the field, score a touchdown. And then the Bills can't just seem to do anything. You could tell that the elbow of Josh Allen was, in fact, bothering him a bit. He threw an interception in the fourth quarter to Patrick Peterson that it just never seemed like he could get the speed on the ball as much as he wanted. I get it because it was cold, so it's not totally his, I guess, elbow's fault, but he threw an interception to Patrick Peterson, and then miraculously, the Vikings are less than a touchdown from taking over and possibly winning the game against the Bills. And the Vikings get down to the 1 yard line, and even inside the 1 yard line, and just can't punch it in. In fact, they run a quarterback sneak on 4th and goal, and they can't get in. It was a great stand by the Bills defense, who had been attacked all that second half. They were so good in the first half and so bad in the second half. It was like a tale of two teams in a way. And to get that stand where you need a yard, not a touchdown exactly. You just need a yard to score because you're right there and your team can't do it. And the Vikings, they can't do it. And then you go for the Bills. You can't take a knee because you're in the end zone. So, unless you want to give up a safety, which I was saying they have to probably run a quarterback sneak or something and just get to the 1 yard line, possibly the 2 yard line. Unless you're willing to take the safety and force a punt and force a safety punt, which would make it easier for you. But I don't know if you want to do that. They decide to go to the quarterback sneak, and then the worst thing that could happen to the Bills happened. They fumbled. On the 1 yard line. The center quarterback exchange, it doesn't get to Allen's hands properly. Fumbles. Vikings recover in the end zone. Touchdown. And it's 30-28 or 31-28 or 30-27. I think it was 30-27. Yes, it would be because there was a missed field goal in between. Missed extra point. I'm sorry. Missed extra point that would have made it 31-28, forcing or 31-27. Excuse me, I don't mind messing this up so much. That would have forced the Bills to go score a touchdown. And the Bills, in 44 seconds, go down the field. Yes, there had some help by a Gabriel Davis catch that didn't, if it would have been reviewed, wouldn't have been a catch. But it was called a catch on the field. They snap it right away. Can't review it. And you kick a field goal. And you bring this game to overtime. In a game that it seemed improbable for you to tie, much less a win. You had a chance to do both. Then you go into overtime. and your defense plays well again. Like, I don't understand how else you can describe it. The Bills go down the field. They go down the field, and you throw another interception to Patrick Peterson, no less, which he ended up calling, "I'm going to get this pick," is what he said, which is what happened. So if you're the Bills, you know there's something wrong with Josh Allen's elbow. You know it. He played. He played well for the majority of it. But the last 2 weeks, 4 interceptions in the red zone or in the green zone, for some call it the green zone. Through 4 interceptions. You had an offense that was pushing the ball down the field. Your defense, at least in the first half, looked tremendous. They were suffocating Kirk Cousins in this run game. And then Justin Jefferson just torched you the whole second half. They had a 4th down and long. I believe it was 4th and 18. And Cousins chucks it for Jefferson. And Jefferson puts one hand out there and catches it. Because the Bills' safety decides, I want to intercept it, not knock it away. Or tackle Jefferson at all costs. He tried to intercept it. I don't know why. But that didn't make any sense. Because now you just kneel the clock out. And that's not what happened. So, mistakes on the Bills' part. A great win for the Vikings, absolutely. But mistakes on the Bills. And my concern for the Bills is this. But prior to this loss, you lost to teams in your own division. You still faced the Patriots twice. You got to face the Jets once and the Dolphins once. The Dolphins might be the easier of the teams because they had beaten you in Miami. And now they're going to have to go to Orchard Park. Yes, they have Tyreek Hill. Yes, they have Jalen Waddle. Yes, they have Mike Gesicki. But there's a lot of players on that team. They're like, man, the weather may be a factor in this game. And it would be. But for the Bills, 2 losses in a row. And I didn't know this. They talked about this. The Bills are the worst team when they have to go when their possessions are less than a touchdown. So what does that mean? That means when the game ends this year or since 2021, the Bills are the worst team in games that they've either won by 7 or less or lost by 7 and less. They're the worst. They're just terrible at it. And the same thing goes for the Vikings. Last year, they were not good at it. For whatever reason, they just were not winning these one-score games. Now entering into the 2022 season, you get a new coach, and you're winning these scored games. And the Raiders, the same thing happened to them. The Raiders last year were winning these close games because that's all they play. And now they're terrible in close games for whatever reason. I want to mention this because it is true as we move on in the NFL landscape. Deshaun Watson, who has had a lot of negative a lot of negativity in the last 2 years, we'll say, is able to return starting today. He's able to practice, not play, practice. As week 13, he's able to debut against his former team, the Houston Texans. I think this was done on purpose, to be honest. I think when the independent judge that the NFL and NFLPA had said, we're gonna go to you on suspensions. The NFL is still gonna have some control on if they don't like it, they can do it on their own. But you're gonna be the one. She said that Deshaun Watson deserved a 6-game suspension because of the evidence that was put in front of her. I mean, 6, like, I guess, I wouldn't have done 6. The NFL obviously decided they weren't gonna do 6. And so they reopened the case, which basically makes the commissioner in the NFL, Roger Goodell, do whatever he wants, which is the reason why they got the independent judge in the first place, was they just decided this is not right for the commissioner to choose the punishments. Because how is Deshaun Watson's suspension 6 games the same as Ezekiel Elliott's 6 games? How does that make any sense? And then you see this one about now it's changed to 12 games. And I'm still looking at it. I'm like, how is that less, not as bad as Josh Gordon doing various other things, various other kinds of drugs, which I'm not like now not illegal in the NFL, but at the time considered illegal. Deshaun Watson, though, isn't, and his was 12 weeks. Now, I honestly believe if the Texans would have played him week 17, they would have had him play or they able to debut week 17. Or if it would have been able to, if the Texans game would have been week 5, he would have played week 5. I just believe that. I think that's how it happened. But nonetheless, he's able to return to practice starting today, November 16 at 12:28. Now, I want to continue. There is a few injuries on this list that I've got. The first one is Zach Ertz. Colonel Zach Ertz is done for the season with a knee injury. No description of what it is. I think it's an ACL injury, but I'm not positive on that. Ertz is one of the reasons of why when you brought in DeAndre Hopkins, you had success. When you brought in Zach Ertz, you had success. The loss of Zach Ertz is tremendous because you can't count on AJ Green to be healthy, and you can't count on DeAndre Hopkins to be there. So that put a lot of pressure on Zach Ertz. Now Zach Ertz is gone, and AJ Green is an older player. You don't have a lot of guys that you can just fill in those spots. So it's going to be very interesting to see what the Cardinals do at that tight end position because they have not played really well either. Like the great thing about their division is the Rams and the Cardinals have very similar records. In fact, the Cardinals just beat the Rams. So it's not like it's terrible, but there's a long way to go for you to be good. And you can say, well, DeAndre wasn't here and various other things. You're not a good football team. You don't run the ball well. You don't play good defense for the most part. You're on the field so much on your defense, it makes them too tired to be good. That's just what happens. So the loss of Zach Ertz is a tremendous one. Another Eagle or former Zach Ertz was a former Eagle. Now we have the Eagles tight end. Dallas Goedert is out indefinitely with a shoulder injury. From what I understand, this is not taking him out for the remainder of the year. However, shoulder injuries are finicky. And what does that mean? Finicky is a way to describe something as it's touch and go at the best. We don't know. It's we'll see, maybe, possibly. It's an old French term. And that's what this is. For Dallas Goedert, not having him out there was huge. Now, the Philadelphia Eagles lost that game against the Washington Commanders. And I want to describe how that happened. The Eagles' offense did not look good. They relied on being on the field. And Washington and their defensive front dominated. They limited the big explosive runs. They limited how much Jalen Hurts could get out of the pocket. And so there was portions of Hurts having to like almost run in circles in the pocket to try and find somebody because there was just nowhere for him to go. And there was interceptions, fumbles, you name it, they had it. They had a deep play to Quez Watkins, who's not a terrible receiver. He's actually a good player. He's wide open. We're in the fourth quarter. He's wide open. I believe they were down by 9 at this point. Wide open. He catches the ball. He's not touched. He gets up. He's going to run. And one of the Washington players grabs him from behind on his back, and Watkins fumbles the ball. And Devontae Smith tries to dive for the ball. He can't get it. The ball kind of squirts its way, and one of the Commanders' young corners, St. Jude, picked it up and had a big return. And it was considered a fumble because he did everything right. He possessed the ball. He got his 2 feet down. He did all these things. So that's one thing that happened. Then there was 2 interceptions. One I can't believe he threw. The other was on the final play. And it really wasn't Justin Hurts' fault. It counts as a throw because Devontae Smith threw it back and it just got intercepted and run back for a touchdown. That's why the score looks the way it does. But one of the final plays, I think it was the first fumble they had, was Dallas Goedert, where he gets face masked and loses the ball. But the problem was he got face masked and the refs didn't see it. And since they didn't see it, they couldn't call it. So as much as they knew it was a fumble, that's when Goddard hurt his shoulder. They went into a replay to see if there was a fumble. And you can see in the replay that there is a visible face mask. Like the Commanders player grabs it and pulls. But they didn't see it. The refs didn't see it. And you can't call a face mask on a replay. You can't throw a flag. So they had to count it as a fumble. Because he did fumble the ball. But that's how Goddard got hurt. He didn't exit the game. He played through it. I assume he had probably numbness in it. But he played through it. But losing him indefinitely is a big loss. Especially because A.J. Brown also kind of got banged up in that game. Early on in the game, they run like a little corner route where all he's doing is running to the sideline. That's all he's doing. He's going to go straight and then cut outside and go catch the ball and go out of bounds. That's all he's doing. It's, for the most part, it's one of the easier plays for a wide receiver because it gives him the outside leverage and it gives him that whole boundary to work. The problem that he had was he looked like he kind of was lagging out of his break from the start of the route. He kind of looked like he got a little banged up, but when he got to where he had to cut, it looked like like a tire blew. It looked like it just like he was running with a bad tire, or he was in a car with 3 wheels were functional and 1 wheel was broken, and he was trying to drive. That's what looked that's what happened. That's what it looked like. And so he caught the ball and he got out of bounds, but you could see he's visibly limping out of the route. And he goes to the sidelines and you can just see it's like, you know, and you know what it is. The hardest thing is though he's such a physical wide receiver. You need him there. He had 1 catch for I believe 7 yards, and that was it. He didn't have anything to do with the game plan because he was just banged up and they had to go away from him. So not having Ertz out there and AJ Brown being banged up doesn't help the Eagles in any way. Now, as you can see in the title, I have Cooper Kupp is heading to IR. He had injured his ankle a couple weeks ago prior to the Tampa Bay game. And he played on it. And you didn't really know anything was wrong because he was that effective. However, in the Cardinal game, he got hit low on, I believe it was more near his shin and ankle and foot area, and he just didn't get up. And he was carried off the field. And he had successful surgery on his ankle. He is heading to IR and he'll be out for 4 games. But not having him there, if you're the Rams, is a massive problem because there's nobody on that team, at least that we know of now, that you can say, that guy can help us. That guy is good enough. We can win with that guy. There just isn't. You would hope that would be Van Jefferson or even Tyler Higbee, but the answer is no, because there's they're so dependent on Cooper Kupp and the things he can do. There's very few people you can see that can just get open and find the soft zone, can beat man coverage, can do all these things. And it almost creates a nuisance for the other team. And yet the problem they have is this. They can't do it without Cooper Kupp. They don't have a good run game without Cooper Kupp. They haven't had one with him, but they definitely won't have one without him. And they don't have a wide receiver besides Cooper Kupp that could do the things that can help all the other players out. So it will be a really difficult stretch for the Rams to even attempt to make the playoffs because of without Cooper Kupp, this Rams offense can't do anything. Now, we go from can't do anything to the greatest, probably one of the greatest coaches of all time in Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick wants to change a specific rule. The rule he wants to change is he wants to make every play reviewable or challengeable. He used the word he wants to be able to challenge. Coaches should be able to challenge, especially under 2 minutes, which I agree with. That seems logical. Every play should be reviewable. So you don't have the incident with the Bills and the Vikings. You don't have that issue. You could probably also say you don't have the issue between Philadelphia and Washington. You probably could say that too. But here's where it goes sideways. It doesn't just go straight. It doesn't go north and south. and I'll bring it to Major League Baseball for this. Major League Baseball has had people as umpires since the start of Major League Baseball. They've always had people as umpires, and those people do make mistakes. That happens because it's a game you're having to constantly pay attention. You can't blink, you can't miss it. You're getting yelled at by every guy. It's a really difficult job. But the problem is that if because they're deciding to now they want to review almost every play. And they decided against it because they decided we want the game to not take as long. We want games to not take as long. We want games that have some quick pace to it, and let's just go. And for the NFL, if they made every play reviewable, I think their fear is if we make every play reviewable, I mean, these games are going to take forever. Now, I do have a way to combat this. The NFL this year is starting to do what is called an expedited review. An expedited review is a way to slow down the play without allowing the game itself to be slowed down. So what they do is they, in New York, have all these plays. And if something is close, they can expedite the review, and the other referees don't have to do that. And they can just say, yep, okay, it's incomplete. Ball's going back to the original spot. It's 3rd and 10. Let's just say. That's what should happen, I think, in my opinion. The problem I've had with the expedited review is it's not even the review itself. It's just they don't use it enough. Some of these games, you're like, man, they just understood that there's something there. They can just get it through, and we can get through these reviews that take a really long time. Or even say, hey, from our angle, it looks like this. We'll send you our angle, and then you can see it on your tablet or whatever. That's what they should do, in my opinion. The likelihood is that won't happen. The OBJ sweepstakes have begun as OBJ, Odell Beckham Jr., has been medically cleared from his doctors. But the thing is, he doesn't want to sign with the team until after Thanksgiving. And you ask, why is that? Why does he not want to sign with the team? I'll give you a great answer. His answer is this. He wants a couple weeks to get in shape. Now, I said this, lots of people have said it, and I've probably compounded on to what they said. But Michael Strahan said it when the news came out on Sunday, because there was no news of getting medical clearance last week. I looked and tried to find it. I couldn't find it. All of a sudden, Jay Glazer says he was medically cleared. Okay, where was this news when I was looking for it all week? I couldn't find it. Finally, Jay Glazer says it in a different time zone. And but then he said he will only do it. He'll only sign after Thanksgiving because he wants 2 weeks to get into shape. But I'm like, wouldn't you just want to just sign with a team, get in shape with the team, and understand the playbook? So that way, even if you don't play for 2 weeks, you sign with the team, you're on the team, you start to learn the playbook, you're in shape, you're in game shape, and you get on the field, you know what you're doing. Why wait? That's my whole thing. And I think that's what Michael Strahan said, amongst others, because it just doesn't make sense to me from the perspective. But OBJ can do what he wants, and I think he'll do whatever he wants, and he knows what's probably best for him and his family. But the thing about OBJ, and this is the critical thing that we should be thinking about. OBJ wants a long-term deal. It came out last year or last offseason. He wanted a Michael Gallup type deal. Michael Gallup got a 5-year contract that's about $63 to $66 million. I don't know how many teams are willing to give a 5-year contract in November. The likelihood that that happens, not high. Not high. I was surprised when Jason Pierre-Paul in October got a 2-year contract. Maybe this will be something like that. I heard something I thought was great. You sign into a 2-year contract, and you have a 3rd-year option. I like it. Let's go. That gives him what he wants. He wants multiple years, and you have the 3rd year. You can move money if you want. I think that's genius. Why not? But again, it comes back to financials. What does he want? If he wants what Michael Gallup's getting, he's not going to get that. No team is going to be willing to pay that. The Giants aren't going to be willing to pay that. The Cowboys aren't, because the Cowboys are a developed team. That's what they call themselves. They're a development team. The Packers aren't really going to do that. I mean, maybe they will, but $20 million or something like that in November? Unless you're completely desperate, which they are, and so are the Rams, you're not going to pay that much money for a team that is going to have you for not even half the year. That's just not going to happen. There was bad news for both teams, both the Bears and the Colts, as the Bears have placed running back Khalil Herbert on IR. Nothing was described of what his injury was. He was placed on IR. He will miss 4 games. And Colts is Shaquille Leonard, or Darius Leonard, or Shaquille Darius Leonard, or whatever you want to call him, is also placed on IR as he had his second back surgery. The scary thing is he had back surgery last offseason. He had a problem with his ankle that they described he had a problem with his back that they said it was his ankle that was the problem. So they did surgery on his ankle. Then they said he was having problems in his ankle, and they said it was at his back, so they had did his back surgery. And so he's only played in 3 games. But he was he's a big component of their team, but not having him out there, especially when you're done for the year, because you can't play on the back surgery. You just can't do it. 2 things left. Let's do this. Jeff Saturday, the Indianapolis Colts beat the Raiders. There's 2 sides of this coin. One, the Colts won a game with an interim head coach who's never coached at the NFL level or at the college level. He's coached at high school, but he hasn't coached in college or at the pros. So he won that game. That was good. On the flip side, and also you reinstate Matt Ryan as the quarterback, and you won a game. Because I don't understand why Sam Ehlinger was put in, but that team was just not very good, and probably wanted to see what you had in Sam Ehlinger. But I wouldn't have done that. On the flip side, if you're the Raiders, you gotta blow this up now. You have no choice. And Mark Davis went and said, he's doing when he was talking about Josh McDaniels potentially being on a hot seat, he said, Josh McDaniels is doing a fantastic job. I'm like, you kidding me? He's doing a fantastic job. What are you watching? This team was unbeatable in the preseason. You couldn't beat them. They lose the first 3 games of the season. Okay, it's early. Then they win a game. "Ah, this is great." Then they're losing. "Ah, okay," brought back down to earth a little bit. Then they won. Okay. So they're 2-4 after at one point being 0-3. So that's good. The only problem is they lost 3 in a row again. And Derek Carr can barely keep it together. He was crying through his press conference on Sunday. The team isn't good. They've given up 3 20-point leads and lost. They're not good. Now, obviously, you don't have Dalen Waller, you don't have Hunter Renfrow, you lose a lot of guys, but your team made the playoffs last year. At what point do you say, we blow it up, we find someone that can connect with these people? When you had Rich Bisaccia and all the craziness that was going beyond NFL and then football and anything. You had what was happening with Henry Ruggs, the resignation of John Gruden, the Damian Arnett stuff. Everything was going on. And yet they found a way to win close games, make it to the playoffs. Yes, you get bounced in the first round, but you made it. This team is not terrible, and yet they're 2-7. That's a failure on your coaching staff because you got good players. Josh Jacobs has turned from Barry Sanders, Jerome. If the way I describe Josh Jacobs right now would be, he's been every best running back you can think of. He's Barry Sanders. He's Billy Sims. He's Emmett Smith. He's Jerome Bettis. He's Walter Payton. He's doing everything he can as a running back, and this team is 2-7. It's disappointing. That's the best way I can describe the Raiders. A disappointing team, and they should blow it up again. They probably shouldn't have blown it up last year. They should have gave it the head coaching to Bisaccia, which I made fun of when Mayock put Bisaccia in charge, and Mayock had all these great things about Bisaccia. He's the greatest leader I've ever known. He's this. He's that. And I was like, okay. I mean, how is this gonna go? And then they find a way to win games, not just games, but close games. They found a way to win with all the chaos that was beyond that. And then you let him go. Why, I don't know. You let him go. And this coordinator from New England, who was a head coach in Denver, who had many chances to become a head coach again